Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Chloe Ezzo, and I am the president of the Dartmouth College Republicans United. First, a quick note. We ask that everyone is respectful of our speakers. Disruptions will not be tolerated. There will be a Q&A at the end, and when that happens, I will give some instructions. I ask that everyone will make a line, and we'll have a few minutes for questions. I am honored to host James O'Keefe, investigative journalist, author, and founder of Project Veritas. His most recent book, American Muckraker. Project Veritas is an organization that exposes fraud, waste, and corruption at the highest level. They have exposed Acorn, Planned Parenthood, CNN, the New York Times, NPR, the New Jersey Teachers Association, Big Pharma, Big Tech, the US government, and many more. Faith in the mainstream media is at an all-time low, and for good reason. The mainstream media has lied about Nick Sandmann, Kyle Rittenhouse, and obscured important stories about the origins of the coronavirus, Black Lives Matter, and Hunter Biden's laptop, just to name a few. James O'Keefe has been faced with lawsuits, and his home has been raided by the FBI. In 2022, unfortunately, that is the price he has to pay for exposing the truth. At Dartmouth, we've had our fair share of fake news. Of course, there were the biased and misleading articles from the Dartmouth, but they've always been known for publishing biased and misleading content. Why does this matter, though? It matters because these students will all graduate with Dartmouth degrees, and many will go on to hold positions of authority in academia, government, and media, and many, many more. And I'm sure, doubtlessly, some will go on to write their own fake news stories. So, bring on the fake news. We're expecting it. And without further ado, here's James O'Keefe for Fighting Fake News. What is truth in 2022? Thank you.
Thank you, Chloe. Great to be here at Dartmouth. Great to be here, and I appreciate you having us talk about truth in journalism in 2022. We just were outside for about an hour and had a nice conversation with some passionate people who disagreed with us, and I invited them here, so hopefully they show up. I'm going to spend about an hour, a little less than that, open to Q&A, and just kind of present to you what Project Veritas does, what is truth, what is journalism. Before I do that, I wanted to show you something. This was an article about me and about this event. Was this the last day or two? By one Kyle Mullins, editor-in-chief of the Dartmouth paper. And I'm going to examine this, because what better way to talk about truth in journalism than to actually examine the article written about my appearance here at your school. The embodiment of fake news. This is Kyle Mullins' quote. I was planning to publish a column this week about free speech, but I changed my mind. Kyle Mullins writing, quote, O'Keefe will be the latest in a long line of unserious, lie-peddling provocateurs. This is your editor-in-chief, or former editor-in-chief, one or the other, of the Dartmouth paper. And I wanted to I'm going to break this down and show you. He claims that I'm unserious, and he claims I'm controversial. The other thing that happened is the Dartmouth anarchists. I did not know that Dartmouth had an anarchist chapter. I find it kind of ironic that an Ivy League university has anarchist members. Posted a series of Instagram pictures basically threatening me, and you can see some of the things in there, and making some wild, insane accusations about me. So this is the sort of thing that happened in the last 24 hours of me being here. Unserious. Let's take a look at that accusation, that I'm unserious. This is one of the most serious stories we ever broke at Project Veritas. You're looking at a Good Morning America anchor, Amy Robach, on a commercial break, being recorded by her own lav mic. This was given to Project Veritas by a whistleblower inside ABC News. I want to play this tape for you. ABC News is owned by Disney Corporation. She's talking about how ABC spiked or canceled the Jeff Epstein story. Listen to this.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the Palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. Every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal.
So when the editor-in-chief of the Dartmouth Review says that we're unserious and lie peddling, was he talking about this story? Jeff Epstein? ABC News spiking the story? What could be more serious than this? Don't take my word for it. The story was the #1 trending story on Apple News. And it wasn't just Fox News that covered it. The Washington Post covered it. This is a Project Veritas piece of journalism. The Associated Press picked it up. Even the New Republic, no fan of Project Veritas, had the headline that said, quote, "Is James O'Keefe good now?" This is a real newsworthy scoop from O'Keefe. This is interesting. They only like us when we investigate things they don't like. That seems anathema to the idea of journalism. Many other organizations picked it up, including People Magazine, the New York Post, Variety, and Spin. Even Ocasio-Cortez retweeted the video. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez retweeted. She promptly unretweeted it when I posted the picture for retweeting it. But Project Veritas actually, if you think about it, forges consensus in society because we expose things that powerful people don't want exposed. This is Amy Robach's reaction to our video. Quote, "I was caught in a private moment of frustration." But it was not a fake video. It was not a doctored video. It was a real video, and she admitted it was real. So I have to ask, why is the Dartmouth anarchists opposed to what I'm doing here? Exposing a corporation, covering up potentially sex abuse, involving an admitted conspiracy between the British royal family. This is the sort of thing that the anarchists should be against, right? Sort of the thing that Dartmouth Review should be interested in exposing. So it's unclear to me what he means by unserious. But let's continue.
Yeah, O'Keefe from Project Veritas on the other day. And that's like, that guy's the boogeyman to the left. He's exposing threats to democracy. He's exposing real live corruption. He's exposing real live conspiracies. Yeah. And they're like, oh no, but it's Veritas. It's a fucking threat. Somehow or another decided that an individual can be like, it's almost like a cure to the reality of whatever he's exposing. Like you could say, oh, it doesn't matter because it's James O'Keefe. And you can put that on top of the thing and it all goes away.
Yeah, exactly.
It's wild.
It's extremely wild.
Let's take another look at what Kyle Mullins has written in his article about my appearance. Quote, let's back up. O'Keefe is the founder of Veritas, an activist group that specializes in secretly recording people, usually progressive activists, staff organizations, and then this is the kicker, selectively, deceptively editing the clips to make the subjects look bad. So the editor-in-chief of the Dartmouth newspaper is reporting that I deceptively and selectively, first of all journalism is selectively edited. In fact, this paragraph is selectively edited. Words are arranged into sentences. Right? That's the nature of writing anything. But what about this accusation that I deceptively edit? That's a serious accusation. And if anybody at Dartmouth can name one instance in the last decade where I have done that, I will write a $10,000 check to the charity of your choice. That's a serious accusation. And maybe he's projecting onto me what he does or what his colleagues do. Let me show you some examples of journalism that we've done that not only is not deceptively edited, courts have determined that they're not. This is a video of a teacher union boss in New Jersey. David Perry is his name. This is where I'm from in New Jersey. This is a couple of years ago we recorded him. Listen to this.
Right.
Listen, it is what it is. He needs to not tell a soul about this. Nobody. If nobody brings it up from school, I don't say good. If he comes to me tomorrow, I'm going to take it back to the day after the incident. HR will come and says, we're going to do a heavy investigation by the kid. Went to his mother, parents are complaining now that this teacher threatened him, it's threatened by whatever it would be. Okay, I got this, but I'm going to let you know right now, he came in the day after, even though he didn't, I would say he did, okay?
So after a certain point, the cameras are erased.
Exactly, that's why we never want to break it up. The longer we wait, the longer there's no.
Oh.
It was tough. We reverse it onto the kid.
That
Now,
makes
if you go to the
sense.
Hamilton Board of Education and report this, they're gonna call the police, they're gonna call parents and all that. We don't do that. We don't do that here. I'm here to defend even the worst people.
By the way, Kyle selectively edited out of this article this investigation. Why didn't Kyle report on this? This is a big story. This is a union boss, New Jersey. I know the Libs of TikTok thing is all in the news right now. They expose whatever LGBT-related issues. This is about child abuse. Isn't this the sort of thing that Antifa should be against? Powerful people working in concert to hurt kids? But don't take my word for it. New Jersey's largest newspaper, teacher union president suspended. There's another one he did, New Jersey. Listen to this one. President of Union City Education saying that here's a file showing the abuse, but you know what? Nothing's going to happen to him.
This file, right here, this huge file.
Oh boy.
This file right here is from a teacher who had sex with a student. And they're not going to jail. You know what this whole file is about? It's about whether or not they get to keep their pension. Sex with a teenage girl.
Oh yeah.
Is he going to jail?
No, he's not going to jail. This was so bipartisan that the current governor, Phil Murphy, had Senate hearings about O'Rourke. But there were no selective edits in this. There were no deceptive edits. Here's another example. Steve Wentz, president of the Kansas Teachers Union, talking about some things regarding children that he has said and done.
You've done this with
I've done this more than once, and I said, but I guarantee you, I will kick your ass.
He did say these things. Now, whether he was right to say them or not, that's a separate issue. He sued us for defamation and lost in federal court on directed verdict, the federal judge writing, quote, although the Wentz video includes select footage from the bar conversations and other edited material, the edits do not improperly and illegally alter the meaning of Wentz's words. That was what a judge wrote about Project Veritas. So what does this guy mean when he says that we selectively edit? Project Veritas has never actually lost a lawsuit. Back in 2009, I personally settled for an invasion of privacy issue, but we've never lost a lawsuit. We've been accused of editing. In fact, even the Hollywood Reporter wrote, love him or hate him, O'Keefe has been establishing legal precedents throughout the nation. We've never lost a case because we don't selectively edit. In fact, sometimes they have to pay us checks, even if it's a little amount of money, the people that sue us have to pay us. Let's go back to this Dartmouth. I'm really dissecting this Dartmouth Review article for a reason. Because one day, Kyle may end up working for the New York Times, right? Or CNN. That's where he's headed. And I'm trying to go through this for you and actually try to understand why he's making these arguments. Because they're not true. And the subject of my speech is truth in 2022 at Dartmouth. Quote, over the years they have prompted voter fraud conspiracies. This is what the guy I was talking to on the quad, we were talking about voter fraud conspiracies, that I'm evil. Why am I evil? Because you've talked about the election being, I said, I didn't talk about the election being overturned. I reported on specific anecdotes of voter fraud. I don't know if there was enough voter fraud to overturn any election, but I do know that there was voter fraud, and I have an obligation to report it. So let's talk about this voter fraud conspiracy claim that Kyle makes at the Dartmouth newspaper. We did a story in Texas featuring this woman named Raquel Rodriguez. Listen to it. By the way, this is not just a Democrat. Rodriguez helped both Republicans and Democrats. She was a mercenary. And we reported this. Let's hear what she has to say.
When you do things like this for votes, you're talking between $5 to $8 per vote. I'm just letting you know, if you have an idea. And I'm going to bring $3,500 to the Flames.
Okay.
County wide.
That's quite a few. Let's hear how much does it cost for the votes?
Maybe $5,000 up front. $5,000.
That's right. Cash.
Wow. Let's see what else. What else does she have to say about this voter illegal behavior?
What I do think of the balance is that's illegal. I could go to jail.
I can't be holding. Those are illegal to have. I will take 20 here, 30 here.
So not the same post office.
Of course not.
Yeah.
You do not let anybody else know this is what I'm doing because if I were in prison.
Wow. She doesn't want anyone to know what she's doing because, quote, I would go to prison if people find out. So where's the conspiracy? Is it a conspiracy if you can see the person's lips moving? You might say, well, that's just a woman talking. Well, apparently she wasn't just talking. Apparently she was doing it because shortly after release this investigation, she was arrested. So when Kyle Mullins of the Dartmouth Review says that I'm engaged in conspiracies, why did he edit out of his article this fact? Isn't Kyle Mullins engaged in precisely the behavior he's accusing me of? When he deceptively edits out of his article the result of the arrest of the person that said, quote, I could go to jail if anybody finds out that I'm buying votes. This isn't just one vote or 5 votes. This is apparently a few thousand votes. Again, I don't think it's going to overturn a presidential election, but it's wrong. It's bad behavior. It's against the law. Are they saying I shouldn't expose it? And if that, present me a rational argument why I should not expose this. Because you're changing the narrative. Well, now you're engaging in an ideological exercise. You're doing the thing that's against the idea of what journalism is supposed to do. And well, this is not the only thing that exposed voter fraud in Minnesota. This guy, who it's almost like a South Park episode of voter fraud. This is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We had to translate it. It was half English, half Somali. It's actually against the law to have more than 3 ballots in Minnesota. In fact, in one of these clips, you can actually see the ballot harvester. You can see his face. You can see the voter. And you can see the money being exchanged for the absentee ballot. You can quite literally see the cash transaction on the videotape. The New York Times did a story about this. Project Veritas releases misleading video, part of what experts call a coordinated effort. And one of the things the New York Times said when I was making claims without evidence. Now this part really is sort of the thing that Kyle Mullins, that's why I say Kyle may work for the New York Times one day. Seems like a natural fit made in heaven. Making claims without evidence? Well, unlike the New York Times, who says people familiar with the matter, I don't require you to rely upon people familiar with the matter. I just show you the videotape. Making claims without evidence. You can see the face, and you can see what they're saying. The allegations come from solely unnamed people who speak with Veritas, whose faces are not shown. Well, actually, you can actually see their faces right there. So we ended up suing the New York Times for defamation. And we're one of a few plaintiffs in the last few decades who've gotten past motion to dismiss in this defamation lawsuit, which is a very hard thing to accomplish. That means you have to have sufficient basis to get past the motion to dismiss phase. In a 16-page decision, the New York Supreme Court ruled against the New York Times and found that we showed sufficient evidence that the New York Times might have been motivated by, quote, actual malice. You're all very smart at Dartmouth. Hopefully you know I am a public figure. To prove defamation, I have to prove that they knowingly lied about me. And a judge said there was sufficient evidence to go into discovery against the New York Times for defaming me. Something that I've never done, by the way. Okay, let's go back to Mr. Mullins. Oh, I just wanted to replay this. This is what the judge in New York State said. The Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of Westchester. Listen to this. He's talking about the New York Times. The New York Times said that it was just our opinion, Your Honor. We didn't mean it. It was our opinion. To which the judge said this.
Defendants argue that their statements describing Veritas video as deceptive, false, and without evidence were mere opinion, incapable of being judged true or false. However, if a writer interjects an opinion in a news article and will seek to claim legal protections as opinion, it stands to reason that the writers should have an obligation to alert the reader that it is opinion. The articles that are the subject of this action called the video, quote, deceptive, but the dictionary definitions of, quote, disinformation and deceptive provided by defendant's counsel certainly apply to Astor's and Shu's failure to note that they injected their opinions in news articles as they now claim.
So it was the New York Times that engaged in disinformation and deception, according to the judge. According to the judge. Let's go back to Mullins. What else does he claim? Okay, he says this. Quote, good journalists do not lie about their status as press. In other words, you shouldn't go undercover. You shouldn't present yourself as something that you're not. Mullins said they declare openly. Good journalists do not lie about their status as press. Okay, let's take a look at that claim. The book that I've recently written, American Muckraker, which is out there in the hallway, I write about this idea of deception, and the problem with his argument is that in order to get to the truth, sometimes if you present yourself as a journalist, you're not getting the truth from your subject. So it's the question of relative deception. In some circumstances, a journalist has a moral obligation to pretend to be something else with the subject so that you can extract the truth and give the truth to the people. But don't take my word for it. You all learned of Upton Sinclair in high school. Sinclair gained access armed with a few simple lies appropriate to the area which he was investigating. Upton Sinclair disguised himself a little bit when he went into the jungle. Or Gunther Walraf, legendary journalist in Europe, who said our task is to deceive in order not to be deceived, to break the rules of the game in order to disclose the secret rules of power. Gunther Walraf was a legend. He wore disguise after disguise. 20th century is replete with undercover journalism. They don't do it anymore. I wonder why. But Kyle's wrong. Or how about ABC News executive in the 1990s? All this sanctimonious about lying versus not lying. In television, pictures provide a level of truth people need to see. Or this guy, who's Clarence Jones, legendary undercover journalist. You cannot get an accurate picture of somebody who's doing something illegal or unethical if they know you're a reporter. So there you have Kyle Mullins. I truly don't understand any of his arguments. Every argument he's written appears to be false. And you also have, the media, this idea of doublethink. One of my favorite books, 1984. Doublethink means the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both of them. For you to say that you care about truth and care about journalism and then sort of contradict yourself is a theme you'll see throughout this presentation. So you look at the media today, and I want to show you this tape. People often ask me, what's one of my favorite investigations that we've done? This, by the way, was not covered by the Dartmouth paper. CNN exposed Charlie Chester, what he said about CNN. Listen to CNN's control room director talk about his network. This was a year ago.
I think we got him through this term. You know, sure shots of him jogging, him in aviator shades, and like you paint him as a young geriatric.
You were creating something we didn't know anything about. I think that's.
The CNN control room director is calling his own network propaganda. He's saying we were creating a story we didn't know anything about.
If we get beat down from that, I am 100% going to say it. And I 100% believe it, that if it wasn't for saying that, I don't know that Trump would have gotten voted out.
Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was.
Our focus was to get Trump, this is a CNN control room guy, get Trump out without saying that's what our focus was. Here's my question. Why don't you want to say that's what your focus is? Why are you not proud of this? There's nothing wrong with CNN being a network that's dedicated to, quote, getting Trump out. But why don't you just call it CNN, dedicated to getting Trump out, as opposed to CNN, the most trusted name in news? There's nothing wrong with this. You have a First Amendment right to, quote, get Trump out. I'm not making a moral judgment about it. But the moral judgment I am making here is, why is he hiding it? I don't hide anything I believe in. There's only three things I hide. The names of our whistleblowers, ongoing investigations, and freedom of association issues related to donor privacy. Everything else I'm an open book. But not them. Not them. Let's see. Oh, this clip here. COVID gangbusters with ratings, says Charlie Chester.
Gangbusters with ratings. COVID, gangbusters with ratings.
He even brags that they put the numbers on the screen at CNN, the death toll. This was about a year ago. And he says he wants more people to die. He wants the numbers higher. Why can't we have the death numbers higher at CNN so that we can get more ratings?
Which is why we can't say the death toll on the side. Let's make it higher. Like, why isn't it high enough here today? Like, it would make our point better if it was higher.
Make our point better if it was higher. And this is a horrible clip, but it's my favorite one because it shows what this is really all about. People always ask me, how do we solve the problems in this country? What are we going to do? And it really comes down to one word. It comes down to fear. They rely upon all of you to be afraid. They need you to be afraid. And of course it works. When they put the death numbers on the screen, people are going to be afraid. And Charlie Chester gives us a peek. This is, again, his words on how this works. Fear drives ratings. It's all about fear.
Like, fear really drives numbers. Fear is the thing that keeps you tuned in.
If it bleeds, it leads. Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah. No one ever says those things out loud, but it's obvious.
No one ever says those things out loud. So that is why we do undercover journalism. Recently we did this into the New York Times itself. Someone asked, have we covered anything pertaining to January 6th? Well, this is a New York Times national security report talking about January 6th. We caught him on a hidden camera. I will let actually Tucker summarize what this investigation is about, and then I'll show you a couple clips.
Project Veritas went out and honey trapped the guy, apparently. Videotaped Matthew Rosenberg talking in private. We have mixed feelings about those kind of tactics, but it's kind of fascinating what Matthew Rosenberg says when he doesn't think people are listening.
Like, I think you could tell how much fun we had in January.
Oh, that's great. Are you allowed to have that much fun on January 6th? Or just Sunday morning?
I know. It's also a bit traumatized. But like, I mean, all the colleagues here, we're the ones, not Fox, not Redmond, who actually went and covered the fact that, like, there were a ton of FBI informants on the people who had gotten.
Rosenberg was saying a lot of things here. He was talking about his colleagues. He was talking about January 6th, the trauma that people endured. He was mocking them. There appears to be a schism in the New York Times between sort of the woke aspects of the newspaper and more serious, traditional people. And he said some pretty amazing things here.
You cannot reveal first.
Well, this way I gotta
very careful.
And I sat down with him, and sort of the person stood up, and I sort of sat down where she was sitting. And I had all this footage on my iPad. One of the things he said, he called his colleagues effing B words. He said he made a lot of disparaging comments. This was his response. He said, quote, "You got me at a bar in a social situation." That was one of the remarkable things he said to me.
You got me at a bar in a social situation.
Now, what's interesting about that was, one of the things that he said to the girl, literally minutes before, was, quote, "If you're talking in public at a bar, it's fair game." He quite literally said, "This is what makes our newspaper." But then when I confront him, "Well, you got me in a bar in this social situation." So I proceeded to show him the clip of him saying that that's fair game. And you start to realize, these are not people in third grade. These are not random people from the telephone directory. These are Pulitzer Prize-winning journalists at the New York Times. And then I go back to George Orwell, 1984, the year I was born, by the way. Doublethink means the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both of them. What's scary is that this concept is not an anomaly. This concept happens with the people that are supposed to inform the public. The people that give you the information when you go on Instagram and Twitter and CNN. I haven't shown you anomalies. I'm showing you the award-winning journalists that are supposed to hold the powers that be to account. And the people that do hold the powers that be to account are targeted, attacked, defamed, slandered, lied about, so that people are afraid to do anything about it. The people in Antifa should be supporting Project Veritas, because we're taking on the national security state. We're taking on the corporations. So why isn't it they're against us? That's a rhetorical question. I'm not smart enough to answer that. I'm just going to show you the facts. You think that I have a lot of fun doing this? I asked this man, and by the way, he was probably one of the more cordial people I've ever spoken to, honestly. Some people don't handle it well. But he has sources in the CIA. He told me on the hidden camera, well, we go around the sources through intermediaries to get the information. And I asked him, well, aren't the people in the government manipulating you if you're not seeing the actual evidence? Do you think that the people in the agencies are manipulating the journalists rather than the other way around? Like they puppet you, they feed you the stuff, whether it's true or not?
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure to meet you too. I'm going to go with you. Why not have your actions in public match your actions in private?
I think it's pretty clear we're not talking about this.
You already have spoken about it privately, and I have recordings of you. That's the thing about journalism, right? You use anonymous sources. You say people familiar with the matter. This is a really important point. In journalism, when you read the paper, you don't actually ever see any actual evidence. You just see the New York Times say, "Oh, you believe us because we're the New York Times." And you do, because they're the New York Times, and you don't want to be shamed by them, right? But do you notice that everything I've said here so far in my presentation, I've shown you actual evidence? Did you notice that? I haven't asked you to believe me by virtue of the decree that I'm credible because I say so. But they do that. And this guy, I just showed you a moment before that he's actually not credible because he literally contradicted himself. And I know that we're very divided in society, but the one thing we must agree upon is the law of non-contradiction. You can't say that 2 + 2 is 4, and then you can say 2 + 2 is 5. But that's what they're doing. So this idea of people familiar with the matter, why is that ethical, but not ethical for us to do what we do? Most of your sources don't speak publicly. So why is it okay for you to do what you do, but not okay for me to do what I do?
I'm going to duck in here. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Do I get ducking in? Are we going to the pharmacy? They don't want to engage us in conversation. Another way of putting it is, I want them to talk. They want me to shut up. Isn't that interesting? That's such an interesting dichotomy. They want me to be silenced, shut down, incarcerated, maybe even killed. I just want to talk to them. Isn't that interesting? Journalists these days, in quotes, journalists, seem to be engaged in like a whole monitoring exercise of censorship. Whereas I want to expose what's going on in the government, what these people actually believe. So one of your students said today, why do you only go after the left? I said, is the FBI left? Are pharmaceutical companies left? Is the New York Times left? Is Pfizer left? Is AstraZeneca left? Is the Department of Defense left? Really? And if that's the case, how did that happen? What's your definition of left? What's that even mean? The Department of Defense left? Really? You have to question these assumptions that people are making. And after we did this story in the New York Times, Dean Baquet came out and said that Rosenberg was, quote, careless and stupid. In other words, the head of the New York Times should be thanking me for exposing someone for doing something careless and stupid. By the way, Dean Baquet has been replaced this week at the New York Times. They should be thanking us. Another thing that happened this week, Dartmouth anarchists wrote, again, these threatening things, horrible, ridiculous accusations. I don't know who these people are, or if they go to Dartmouth. They called me a, quote, sex offender. Crazy. And I'm proud to say that we've actually gone undercover inside Antifa. Maybe that's why they're butthurt.
I am about halfway through the prospecting process to become a full-fledged member of Antifa.
Rose City Antifa holds required lectures for prospecting members in secret, in other words, bookstore, before they open. And as part of their security culture, they require us to put our phones in the bathroom next door. This bathroom is not only away from the main room where the lecture is taking place, but also has a fan that muffles any sound from the room.
Were they afraid of hiding? One of our undercover journalists exposed, this is in Oregon, Portland, Oregon, had exposed that there was counseling inside these things about how to, quote, do an eye gouge. This is what this undercover reporter unearthed inside of Antifa in Rose City. I don't support violence in any way. I don't condone violence, and if someone is encouraging people to gouge people's eyes out and trying to hide that information by putting a white noise machine in the bathroom so everyone's phones can be taken away, that's the sort of thing that journalists should be exposing. Right? That's what journalists are supposed to do. And maybe that's why Antifa made some crazy stuff up. Another thing that we've exposed was a teacher in California. This is Gabriel Guyton. This is a big story, and he was recorded by a person posing as a parent. I'm not sure why a teacher would brag to a person he thought is a parent about this stuff, that he has 180 days to turn his students into revolutionaries.
Like 180 days to turn into revolutionaries. How do you do that? How do you scare the fuck out of them?
Scare the F out of his high school students. We actually confronted this man in the street, Mike Wallace style.
Hello, how are you? I am a journalist with Project Veritas. Nice to talk with you.
What's interesting about him is he has the hammer and sickle flag right there. He looks like the archetype of a person in his Saturday Night Live sketch about a communist teacher. He's got the glasses, the hammer, and I did not dress him. Now, the other thing about the double thing, you listen to what he says.
Don't mind my colleague recording. We are recording. But I think you're going to be more interested in what I have to say here.
He doesn't feel comfortable. But he just said he wants to scare people. It's interesting, the concept of Orwell's double thing. After this happened, there was an actual, this was remarkable. There was parents coming into this meeting. They were not Republicans or Democrats. They were just outraged mama bears. And they were speaking about this tape. And I think this is what really journalism and what truth and what transparency is designed to do, is designed to activate people and breed moral consensus.
The second thing, let me explain. This means that in 2 weeks, in 13 days, he he was allowed to change my daughter's mind about some fascist crap that y'all have let in this school. I'm tired. This is ridiculous. I'm from Texas. This don't go on in Texas. This does not go on in Texas. There are 2 grades higher than California, period. So to think that my very sound-minded daughter would go against me and my wishes and our values in our home, to be able to go and support this man, and he is putting her in harm's way, what the hell are y'all doing? I'm tired. How long does it have to go on before somebody says something? How long? How long? What are you going to do? That's the question. Get him out of here. We don't fucking care about this boy.
There were literally dozens of parents that gave speeches like this, outraged. And what happened? The teacher was put on leave and fired.
The past month, Gabriel Geip has been put on paid administrative leave. Tonight, the school board making an official decision to fire him.
All of these things that I've shown you so far were selectively edited out of the Dartmouth coverage of my appearance here. Don't you think, and you should ask this, I tried to get in touch with him. We reached out to him for comment. He was scared and didn't show up and pretended like he had to go to class or something. Don't you think you should ask him why he didn't include anything that I've shown you here today about my presence? Don't you think these things are interesting for you to know? If he's going to make those claims? But there's a lot more, and I have very little time, and I'm just going to sort of conclude with perhaps the most egregious, biggest abridgment of freedom of speech in the history of the United States of America, and that is a true statement. You're about to see something that's never actually happened before, and I know that it's hard to shock people, right? We all see all the news of the day, and it goes one ear out the other. There's nothing we can do about it. You're about to see something that's never actually happened before in American history. The FBI executes search warrants on myself and my team. The pretext was about a diary. Ashley Biden, the daughter of President Biden, most people don't know that President Biden has a daughter named Ashley Biden. A source had sent us this document back in September of 2020. We reached out to Ashley, we reached out to Joe Biden for comment. Tried to corroborate it. I thought that I failed to do that, even if I was successful in identifying that it was a real diary. I felt it was a cheap shot. I felt I wouldn't want to publish someone's private musings. And I don't know if what she wrote about actually occurred. So we made the ethical decision not to do that. And if we were right-wing extremists, perhaps I would have published it, but I didn't. A year later, I hear a pounding on my door at 6 a.m. Pounding on my door. I wake up, I run to the door, and the first thought I had was, I gotta open this door, and are they gonna shoot me? And I open the door, and there's 10 to 12 agents with pretty big white lights and a battering ram. They're about to bang my door down. Now let me remind you, this is about a diary. The Supreme Court of the United States has protected the right of journalists to print materials that are given to them by third parties, even if the information was stolen by the third party, so long as we played no part in that. That's established Supreme Court precedent, Bartnicki v. Vopper, the Pentagon Papers, etc. So they put me in handcuffs and threw me against the wall and went through my house. This is the sort of thing Antifa should be against, by the way. And they took all my stuff, and there's a little video clip. One of our journalists recorded this. Let's take a look at what it sounds and feels like to have the FBI execute. But it's a very aggressive thing for the FBI to do. There's actually rules and regulations they broke. When you do this to a journalist, you have to show the probable cause that made the affidavit. There are criminal rules of procedure they violated, the Privacy Protection Act. They broke the law here when they did this.
I'm sorry, so what is this regarding?
the third floor. Open up.
They put me in one room, I was in handcuffs, and they went to the other room, rummaged through my things. And then we're done with that room, they put me in another room, and I said I'd like to speak to my attorney. They let me do that, but the moment I was done and I hung up the phone, they snatched the phone out of my hands, which had been unlocked because I just finished a phone call, and then they put my phone in an evidence bag. I'm an American journalist. And they did this to us. Why? Why did they do it to us? Now we found out last month that Microsoft was issued secret warrants and subpoenas by the Department of Justice to not disclose that they got 200,000 more emails from Microsoft. This is the sort of thing they do to like terrorists. But they did it to us. And they gagged Microsoft from talking about it. A federal judge in New York ordered the FBI to stop doing this, and they went around the federal judge's back to multiple magistrate judges. They shopped this around in New York, where I live, and they got secret orders and warrants. It was so outrageous that even the New York Times, who I'm suing for defamation and winning in that lawsuit, wrote a headline last month saying, quote, "It is highly unusual for the Justice Department to obtain the internal communications of journalists, as federal prosecutors are supposed to follow special guidelines to ensure they do not infringe on First Amendment rights." Microsoft pushed back on the subpoenas. In fact, they issued a motion, and once they made the motion, the feds backed down and the information became public. In fact, it's so outrageous, and this might be a glimmer of hope to all of you, because there still is some consensus in certain. The ACLU defended us. So we at least accomplished the ACLU to defend Project Veritas. And they said that we are concerned that the precedent set by this case could have serious consequences for press freedom. All of this edited out of the Dartmouth article written about my appearance here today. The ACLU defending, that hasn't happened in many years. Something like this. Because there still is a Venn diagram in this country of left and right, and there still is overlap. There are still things that unite us as Americans. The First Amendment, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, due process, e pluribus unum. These are beautiful things. These are the things that Project Veritas stands for. And I would argue to you that what unites us, for example, being allowed to expose and investigate so your citizens know what's going on, and not to have federal Stasi raid your home with violence, those things are more powerful than what divides us as Americans. But don't take my word for it, just read that statement. And these are not people who agree with us. People like this, Crystal Ball, former MSNBC contributor.
You cannot, obviously, as a First Amendment organization or anyone, directly steal something. That is illegal. But even the New York Times, that has an axe to grind here, isn't saying that that's what happened. Now they allege, oh, maybe they knew that it was stolen materials, but guess what? Journalists know that they're using stolen materials all the time. It's hard to see, outside of political motivation, what is the justification for the criminalizing of these activities?
Unless, for Crystal, they can prove that Project Veritas directly organized the theft of these materials and orchestrated it directly, not purchasing it after it had already been stolen, then this is a BS political persecution.
That's what it is. They also did it to Apple and Google after they did it to Microsoft. So this is our mission. We've never lost a lawsuit. Going back to my favorite quote, George Orwell's Doublethink, we're continuing to sue the New York Times. We have the federal judge in New York on her desk to unseal the affidavit, to return our property back to us. In many of the depositions in the lawsuits that we filed, you will see the qualities and character of the people that have sued us. This is one of my favorite clips. This woman was working alongside Bob Creamer, Democracy Partners. We're going to a federal trial in September. We're going to win that case. In the discovery process, we confront her, our attorneys confront her, and this is a great example of what I've been talking about, double think.
Did you hear the statement, have you been to the rape bar?
I did.
Who said that?
That was me.
Okay. Did you eventually publish a video of these events?
I published a video of events that occurred earlier that evening.
So you edited out these parts where, these first two parts where you and Ryan Clayton were confronting Ms. Moss. You didn't.
I object to your characterization of my actions.
Okay. Well, you're not a lawyer, so your lawyer's here, and he'll object for you. So what I'm asking you is...
Well, I disagree with your characterization of my actions.
With which part?
That I edited anything out.
Okay. So what did you do that these parts didn't make the video?
So, I edited them.
You see what I'm saying? I've shown you New York Times journalists, I've showed you CNN journalists, I've showed you federal agents, and now we have this woman who apparently tries to do what I do. She goes undercover, but she can't be consistent.
Did those last two statements make your published final version of this confrontation with Ms. Moss?
I don't believe so.
Why not?
Because it wasn't necessary in the narrative that we were trying to produce.
It wasn't necessary in the narrative that we're trying to produce. I know there are people in this room who don't like me. Can you defend that? That's what you accuse me of. That's the very thing that you accuse me of doing. Is it projection? Is it Freudian? Whatever it is, it's not what Project Veritas stands for. In conclusion, our mission is for people to be brave. We have people inside a lot of these institutions, inside the Department of Justice even we have, tech companies, federal agents, universities, school systems, pharmaceutical companies. We have people everywhere. And we need them to come forward and be brave and do something. Your pension, all that stuff, it's not going to last after you die. And we need people to come forward, and we're the only place they can come to. They certainly cannot go to the institutions and individuals I've just shown you, obviously. The Project Veritas is going to grow, and the only thing that can stop us, Joe, is us stopping. No weapon against us can prosper. Because we believe in the truth, and we have ethics and integrity, and our track record shows that. So thank you all for having me, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Crop tape.